So Mark Carney holds stock options and deferred share units in Brookfield potentially worth tens of millions of dollars. The chief operating officer of Brookfield said that in respect of Carney's stock options and deferred share units, quote, as the value of Brookfield increases, the value of those instruments increase. So accordingly, it follows that as Brookfield-owned companies do well, Brookfield does well, and by extension, Mark Carney does well. So if you don't have a full list of the companies, I would put it to you that you are missing potentially a whole long list of conflicts of interest or potential conflicts of interest that Mr. Carney has with Brookfield companies.
The Annex A to the screen lists the first five companies. This is really the ones who own all sorts of other, the rest of them, directly, indirectly, or in which are dealing with those. It's clear that Mr. Carney's compensation is tied to the future compensation is tied to the success of Brookfield. But in order to avoid that he makes decisions which can be seen to benefit Brookfield and thereby indirectly himself, he has set up, first of all, he's put everything in a blind trust, but secondly, he set up the screen to make sure that any decisions that he makes regarding the five key holding companies, he is, or the ones that he knows about.
Commissioner, I think you said it exactly right, that Mr. Carney's portfolio is tied to Brookfield. As Brookfield does well, so does Mark Carney, and yet 95% of Brookfield companies are not subject to the screen. How do you explain that?
I don't know where you get these 95%. What you have before you is his statement saying these are the companies that he knows about, and he, etc. And then the entities that appear before the lobbyists, and also the entities that were defined by our office, etc. That's essentially the universe we know about, and as he himself says in Annex A in Item C, that I had no role in managing them and no direct financial interest in them. So now you're saying he has a financial interest. I don't know how you are you contradicting the statement made in Annex A?
I'm simply referencing what Mr. Bieber said, and in light of the fact that Mr. Carney has stock options and deferred share units, and I know that we saw a letter from Brookfield today that merely dismisses these companies as de minimis. Are you just taking Mark Carney and Brookfield at their word, or have you sought to get further information? Given Mr. Bieber's testimony that there are these 1,900 other companies, are you going to go back to Mr. Carney and go back to Brookfield and say, provide us with a list of those companies to determine whether or not additional companies should be added to the screen?
Lynn, do you want to answer that?
So, essentially, when the screen is a preventative measure, it's there to anticipate conflicts of interest. It's not there for the Prime Minister to avoid a conflict of interest. So for all intents and purposes, if a matter is brought to the Prime Minister's attention and the Prime Minister is aware that it would further the private interests of Brookfield, then he would have to recuse, even if the screen did not capture that item because it's not on the annex.
I understand how the screen works. Yeah. I'm just asking, why will you undertake, or are you intending to get a list of those companies in light of Mr. Bieber's testimony? That was my question.
Okay. Well, of course, we looked at these companies and to make sure we know what the interest of, and most of them, as Mr. Bieber said, are de minimis. Right. But any kind of deferred compensation that you
are taking Brookfield at their word.
I'm going to have to cut it off there, Mr.